During my tenure at Temple Emanu-El, I have been blessed to work with amazing partners who have taken on leadership in our congregation, both in the board, the executive board, and especially in the presidency. That is no exception now with our latest president, who I'm blessed to call my dear friend as well, Robert Heidenberg. Without further ado, I'd like to ask Robert to come forward at this time and share some brief reflections with you about our synagogue at this important crossroads in the world and for our shul. Careful, Robert. Okay. You're going to come this way towards my voice, Robert. And orient yourself. Come here. The podium is right here. Okay. And give you the front of the podium.
Right here?
You're centered. Yeah.
Okay.
And just little step left. A little step. That's good. On this.
Okay.
This is good.
Right here?
Perfect.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and good morning, and a happy 5782 to all of you. This morning, I'm going to share with you a little bit about who I am, where I come from, and some of my experiences here at Temple Emanu-El. 50 years ago, this September 18th, that is half a century ago, I was bar mitzvahed here at Temple Emanu-El. As soon as I sat down after chanting my Haftorah, as if on cue, the St. Cecilia marching band came marching down Tenafly Road, playing When the Saints Go Marching In. Because I was a Hebrew school dropout, and no one expected me to ever get through that Haftorah, everyone in the sanctuary that morning just assumed that my mother had hired the marching band. And it would have been perfectly natural, if you knew my mother, that she would have no problem appropriating an Irish fight song to celebrate a Jewish occasion. For those of you unfamiliar with Temple Emanu-El before 2001, we were located on Tenafly Road in Englewood. On September 18th, 1971, the St. Cecilia football team had a home game, and hence the marching band. This is also the same St. Cecilia, in case you don't know it, where the legendary Vince Lombardi coached high school football in the 1950s. I'd like to share with you a little bit about my parents to give you a little bit of sense of my background and how I got here. My parents had little or no interest in Judaism. They did, however, have a lot of interest in gambling and betting. They were characters. My father's name was Jack, my mother's was Sylvia. Jack was born in 1904, Sylvia was born in 1915. Neither one graduated high school. 80 years ago, in 1941, they were married. Looking at photos from that era, it looked like my parents, Jack and Sylvia, could have walked off the set of Guys and Dolls. For much of the 1940s and 50s, on many Friday nights, you would have found my parents at Madison Square Garden watching and betting on boxing, which they called the fights. The only recollection I have of any Jewish holiday growing up was at my grandmother's apartment in Washington Heights, the same grandmother who made whiskey in her bathtub during Prohibition. Can't make this stuff up. At that Passover Seder, there was no hiding the afikomen. There were no 4 questions. There was just one question: when does the poker game begin? And so at that Passover Seder, I didn't learn anything about Passover, but I did learn when to hold, when to fold, and when and how to bluff. In 1992, 21 years after my bar mitzvah, I joined the board of trustees here at Temple Emanu-El. I think it's fair to say, standing up here now, 29 years later, that I am Exhibit A when it comes to that I'm Exhibit A when that I'm Exhibit A when it comes to the example of what happens when you give that mouse a cookie. Shortly after joining the board here in 1992, my pal Shep Goldfein and I led the effort to relocate the temple from Englewood to Closter. I signed a contract for the temple to acquire 10 acres of land on Hickory Lane. That contract was signed on December 24th, 1993. 7 years, 3 months, and 7 days later, we opened our doors here on Piermont Road. What happened in between, I think, could fairly be said, without much exaggeration, a journey of mythic and biblical proportions. In 2003, and I almost said Rabbi Hertzberg, geez. Rabbi Kirshner briefly talked before when Adi was giving his, doing his thing, that his parents, Rena, his mom Rena is here today. So in 2003, because I decided it was time to learn something about Judaism, I signed up here at the temple for the Florence Melton adult education class. 18 months later, after a class dealing with God and the Holocaust, I started to come to terms with my impending blindness. I have retinitis pigmentosa, which is a degenerative eye disease, and I have lost much of my eyesight. But following that class, and that class being given here at Temple Emanu-El, I said, you know what? I should no longer focus on what I don't have. I should focus on what I do have. I should no longer focus on what I can't do. I should focus on what I can do. And I started to realize, and this has really become my tagline, that God may have given me one bad gene, but God gave me about 23,000 other genes that I'm really very happy with. So why focus on that one bad gene? Let's focus on that 23,000 other really good genes. And along the way, I realized that God has really been looking out for me. When I was 15, I won the Metropolitan Golf Association Junior Championship and thought I wanted to become a professional golfer. But God knew it would be really difficult for me to be a blind professional golfer. So the following summer, God made sure all the girls at Edgewood Country Club were playing tennis. That was the summer I became a tennis player. God also knew it would really be hard for me to be a blind surgeon. So God made sure during high school science class, I spent the entire time staring out the window. More recently, God made sure I found and partnered up with my Hall of Fame guide dog, and she has really made all the difference. She is the Mariano Rivera of the guide dog world. But more than anything else, God made sure, back in the summer of '79, that I met, started going steady with, and fell in love with one Susan Ungerleider of East Brunswick, New Jersey, my own Jersey girl. So yes, I have lost much of my eyesight, but how blessed am I? My dear, dear friend, Rabbi Kirshner, David Kirshner to me, often talks about the different portals here at Temple Emanu-El. I certainly have found a number of portals that work for me. And those portals have made my life really rich and really rewarding. I encourage each of you to find one or more portals that work for you. And I guarantee you, coming back here to Temple Emanu-El, that you will find those portals really rich and really rewarding. And you may even start to come to terms with your own Mishigas, as I have. Finally, I'd just like to thank my daughter Jessica here, standing in the wings, who has been my audio cue card girl. And that has been quite helpful to know that she is here. So that's really it, folks. Shana Tova, a happy and healthy New Year to all of you.
On a scale of 1 to 10 over 17.
And this one too. And this one. Okay.
Shana Tova, Robert. Thank you for inspiring all of us, not only today, but every day, in the work that you do tirelessly for our synagogue and for our community.